Hello my loves, I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being on my channel where we are talking about the multi-dimensional approach to rapidly and radically healing and transforming during and after narcissistic abuse. And I'm making this video on dealing with the discard of the narcissist. In these cycles, discard happens sometimes in minor ways along the way and sometimes brutally. Like the narcissist may completely drop you. The narcissist may be a family member, a parent, or I've had that, or a romantic partner, lover, a husband, wife, someone that you're very much in love with, right? The minor discards are like the passive aggression, like when they just ignore you, abandon you and your emotions, neglect you, disappear, go off the radar, you don't hear from them, that kind of thing. The final discard, or the biggest discard, which often they'll hoover back from, but not always, can be the most brutal event or one of them that you've experienced, right? And it leaves us with many questions and in total shock. In fact, a discard is one of the ways to ignite a really severe trauma bond, because it leaves you with more questions than answers. People spend a lot of time wanting to get closure, and part of that is because it's an abrupt event that shocks your system at such a core level. You get abandoned, which is one thing, but normally with a narcissist in the worst ways, right? Often for nothing or not really doing much. They may discard you, which I've seen in a way where they will get with someone else and literally rub it in your face and then turn very cruel and start the smear campaign and really work against you. I had that happen to me, which is just so vile. It's so malicious, especially from, again, seemingly not much that you did wrong. Except for, at some point, the narcissist will have decided that you have not literally praised them and worshipped them like a god in the way that they wanted you to, right? So what I recommend with my clients when they are going through this, which is a huge trauma, one, you can join Sovereign. I'm relaunching the modules in July, so the July round is coming up. I've been saying that you can enroll for it and just, say you want your place, but we're going to launch it in July, which will help you with this, right? But here's what I say to my private clients. What I try and do with them is accelerate the grief process. I'll tell you why. Because when the narcissist does this kind of discard, the shock to your system is so big, right? That you can stay in this shock and stay in this devastation for such a long time. So when you start moving consciously, choosing to move through a grief process, which is what I do with people, right, when they're really suffering with this, you're actually accelerating your healing and overcoming the stages of grief that you're going to go through. Because the first thing you go through is denial. Let's say they just ghost you, or say they just drop you. You deny who and what they are, at the very least, right? You're going to want to deny the truth of the situation, the brutality of it, the absolute horror of it, the terror of it. You're going to want to deny it. So we've got to, first of all, start not denying what happened to us and how bad it is, right? Because the cognitive dissonance will want to kick in there. You'll want to reminisce on the love bomb stage. The narcissist puts you under such a level of enmeshment and psychic attack that that's going to be what you're going to want, you'll feel pulled to do. And the emotions of withdrawal when you're discarded are really high. That's the beauty of a trauma bond, right? That the withdrawals have been described by heroin addicts as stronger than coming off heroin, coming off narcissists, right? One of the worst investments we could make of our time, energy, attention and money in the universe, right, is in a narcissist. That is the worst investment in life we can often make. So when it comes to our heart, when it comes to our love, when it comes to where we're spending our energy. So the withdrawals are going to be really high. There are some tools on this channel that talk about breaking psychic ties. They talk about regulation. I've got energy clearings on the channel that you might want to go into because you need to regulate your system and get out of your mind. You cannot solve trauma on the level of the mind. So you've got to be really mindful. If you've gone through a severe discard, I need you to be mindful of what you let your mind exposed to, right? Don't watch frightening things on television, triggering things on television, not for now. Spend time in nature, ground yourself, and you want the body to start processing what happened, right? And I've got tools on here, some tools on here, if you can come into Sovereign, I do more of that. But like where you can start processing the grief. That's what you've got to do. The shock. You've got to process the shock and let the body see the truth. You've got to write down the truth often. I mean, that helps. You haven't got to write down, but it often can help because your mind is going to want a resolution. And this is what keeps people trapped for years and years and years in the cycle, wanting them back. You may do things during this, I have, where you desperately reach out, you're in despair, you want answers, and they're going to reject you more and more, and it's going to get even more painful. It can put you in a very dark place, right? And make you feel very bad about yourself. So, first of all, I want you to really start acknowledging who this person is, what they're capable of, why it's wrong. Right? So you want to start moving through denial. The next stage of grief after denial is anger. If you can get yourself angry, you're actually making headway. There is an emotional scale that I talk about that David Hawkins made in his book called Power versus Force. And like anger is a much healthy, like you're moving up the emotional scale basically when you get out of grief and despair and shame and into anger. So you know that if you're feeling angry again, don't take it out on other people. Find ways to healthily express it to yourself. You might want to just walk around a field. I've done that, swearing or whatever it is to get it out of your body. Connect to your anger. Listen to rap. I did. I connected to anger. I had to force myself. Anger was the hardest emotion for me because I've never been an angry person. I felt the pain of what people did to me, but to feel anger was very foreign to me. It was very hard for me to get there with anyone, so I actually had to do that on purpose. Now, do it safely. Do not take it out on other people. Our processing of emotions is not to be taken out on other people, you see. That's where people get it wrong. They watch reality TV shows and see everyone. Basically, on reality TV, what you're generally seeing is a lot of unprocessed stuff, right? What's healthy is for us to take responsibility for our emotional state, find healthy ways to process the emotions, come back regulated and have powerful conversations with people that make a difference with an outcome in mind, right? So we can communicate our wants, needs and desires, our boundaries and standards, and not just vent emotions at people because that doesn't get anyone anywhere. It never solves anything on the planet. After the anger stage, you might want to, there's a stage in it called bartering, which is where you might want to start making deals with the narcissist. You're not in the shock, you're not in the pain anymore, and you might want to try, I'll take you back if this, and you want to, or you're not quite accepting it. It's the time in grief where people will pray to God and say, you know, I'll change my whole life if you just make sure this doesn't happen. Or we get in this kind of scared of life, wanting to make agreements type stage. Our mind is racing and we start wanting to we feel powerless is what I would say about it. And so we're giving our power away constantly. We're in this kind of thinking we need to sacrifice in ourselves in some ways to get what we want. It's a stage we go through. It's a weird stage. People show up differently, but just know that you don't want to do any of that. So no giving your power away. Yeah. Ask for your power back if you make a prayer. Do things that remind you of who you are. Write down your best qualities. Start actually setting boundaries and standards with people. This is not the time to drop them, and this is the time when you're going to want to drop them a lot in this grief stage. Then you might go through depression, and these stages can all come at once, and then you're going to come into acceptance. And when you can fully accept it, you see, when you accept something, you've already forgiven, you've let it go. Yeah, forgiveness is not an endorsement. Forgiveness is not, I endorse this behavior. Forgiveness means this has no energetic charge over me whatsoever. It happened. I know it happened. I accept it happened. Yeah, I'm not spending my life thinking it shouldn't have happened, because for a lot of us that go through these cycles, we notice the damage they cause and we want our lives back. You know, we lose a lot of time over it and we feel that our lives would have been very different without it. We don't know that for a fact. Even I don't know that for a fact. But it did happen, you see. That's what we have to accept. It did happen. This person is who they are. What they're capable of is terrible. Make no mistake, they're capable of doing the same thing to you over again if they've discarded you in worse ways. They do this in the worst possible ways, always. So you come to complete acceptance, and this will be helpful if you have absolutely acknowledged who and what you're dealing with. You accept it for what it is. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. You see, again, in the bartering stage, this is when people also will go into mass kind of healing. They want to heal everything about themselves rather than acknowledge what the heck they've been dealing with. I am not saying you know, sovereign is all about, you go through sovereign, you do my work, you are going to not be codependent, right? You're not. You're going to be the creator of your own reality. Source in co-creation with the divine. Self-sourcing is one of my pillars, which means I teach you manifestation, which is radical responsibility for self. But what I need you to know is that in the bartering stage, it's when everyone starts trying to fix themselves, right, to what was wrong with them that got them in this mess in the first place. That's a very helpful thing to do, to not be codependent, right, to clean up. But they do it in order to get the narcissist back, blaming themselves for the whole thing, which is part of the cycle, where you've got to really accept, I was dealing with someone so unacceptable. There are so many people on this planet who are codependent. Most of them are not that healed, right? And they don't get abused for it. They work on it in therapy if they want to. Codependency looks like your level of neediness, right? And there are many people that are very needy. My dogs are highly codependent, and I love that about them. I don't want it in a romantic partner in that way, you know what I mean? We're sovereign beings and we have a joint vision and we can do better things together. That's my view on romantic relationships. But codependency is natural. Kids have it, animals have it. And we grow out of it, and not all of us have learned how, but it does not make you a match for abusers, right? You just didn't know any other way, and they exploit things like codependency. They exploit your empathy. So when you accept them first for who they are, before you start massively fixing yourself, you've got to come to acceptance that this was totally unacceptable, and it's not something I'll tolerate in my life. If you can come to that, you'll take your entire power back, because it becomes your choice of what you will and will not tolerate in this universe, and the universe responds to that. The universe always responds to what we'll tolerate and what we will not. It really does. And so when we don't know what to look for, we tend to let these things slip over time, thinking they will never get as bad as a brutal discard. With a narcissist, you have no idea what they're capable of. In fact, if you're actually in a romantic relationship with them, whether you probably don't believe it, maybe you do, there will be a web of people they have that they speak to, that they connect to, way beyond what you can imagine. You might think, oh, they're a loner. Trust me. I've seen it over so many years now, so many cases, so many people. I've spoken to many narcissists, you know, and studied them too. They have a web that what goes on behind the scenes would hurt your soul. It's better not to know. If they've discarded you, God's rejection is your protection. They've done you a favor. You haven't even got to make it yourself. But it doesn't feel like that at the time. It does not feel like that at the time. It feels absolutely horrific, often like you'll do anything to get them back. So I want you to accelerate the grief process. Your biggest job to start with is to recognize what's wrong with them rather than try and fix you to start with. When you've come to complete acceptance of what you were dealing with and you've decided it's not acceptable for you, then you can start improving yourself, improving your standards, improving your boundaries, improving your sovereignty. If you want to join Sovereign, we're open for July. It will rock your world. Other than that, I love you. Please like, subscribe and share, and comment what you'd like me to talk about, and I'll speak to you soon.